and this afternoon if you're on the West Coast. We're just going to take a few more minutes and let some more folks join us. Welcome to everyone who is continuing to join us. We'll just wait like 15 more seconds and give people a moment to get in, and then we can get started. We'll get started. Thank you to all of you for joining us today. This is actually our last installment in our Midterm Madness game plan series, where we've just been exploring different aspects of the midterms, and have a presentation from a wonderful guest speaker today that we're going to go through just to talk about what's at stake in the midterms this year. But just wanted to take a moment at the top of this program conversation to just acknowledge the shooting that happened today. I'm sure most of you have heard or at least seen the news about out of Texas, where a gunman opened fire at an elementary school, killing 15 people. 14 of those people were children. And one of those people was a teacher there. And I know most of us can't see each other right now. This is being streamed on YouTube, but I'd just like us to take a brief moment of silence for the lives lost today, 8 days ago in Laguna Woods, 10 days ago in Buffalo, and almost every day in this country where people are victims of gun violence. So just going to take a moment of silence. Thank you all. And now, before we get started on the conversation that we have today, I just want to, say the thing we're not supposed to say. Gun violence is political. There's going to be a lot of people right now saying, let the families take their time to grieve and don't bring politics into this. But the only reason we're here right now is because of political decisions made by elected officials. Texas has very loose gun laws. Almost anyone in Texas can carry a gun. Last year, the Texas legislature actually passed, and Governor Abbott signed a law that allows Texans to carry handguns in public without going through training or having to get a permit. And so these are all the political decisions that get us here. So, when people are telling us, don't bring politics into this, politics is literally why we're here right now. And there are elected officials who make these decisions, and we need to get them out of office. We need to elect people who don't think it's okay for children or anyone to be gunned down, but especially children who are going to school where they're supposed to get all the skills and tools they need to actually have futures that, are full and worth living. And 14 kids today will not get that. And there's so many families around this country who continue to struggle and deal with the fact that they've lost loved ones to gun violence. And that's part of our political process, getting those people out of office. And so I know that it feels weird to talk about politics right now, but that's literally why we're all here today. We have to be engaged. We have to do things. And I know everyone who's here tonight is here because of that reason. But the other part of this is, this change is not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a long time. We, in the Senate, we saw all of last year an attempt to get rid of the filibuster that would not happen. Joe Manchin has been in favor of gun reform, but he's not in favor of getting rid of the filibuster. And so until we can do that, we have nowhere near the votes we need at the federal level. And then even in Texas, the legislature is run by Republicans. There's a Republican in the governorship. And, those are the changes we have to make. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's a long game, but that's why we ask so much of you all, because we know that this is going to take a lot of work to get better people in office. And, a few weeks ago now, there was a leaked decision about Roe. And I think it's really important to remember that Republicans have been focused on overturning Roe for decades. And they have been looking at the long game, and they've waited and gotten a ton of people into office in judicial positions that they were able, soon at some point in the next month, we're going to see a decision that overturns Roe. And that is because they were looking at the long game. I don't want to say anything that they are doing is good, but I think we can take a lesson from that and understand that everything that we want to see happen is not going to happen in November. It will not happen in 2024, but we can slowly make incremental gains toward that by replacing our lawmakers. And, if even one child doesn't have to go to school and be gunned down in, 10 years, like, that's worth it. And so I just thank you all for joining us today. And I hope you understand, like, why we keep asking you to do all this stuff is it's not about just winning. It's about creating the country that we want to live in. But we have limited time. So, I will stop talking and just take a moment to introduce our guest who is here to talk to us today about what's at stake for our democracy in 2022, and the reasons that we should be a bit hopeful, and share a presentation about our path to victory. And so Mike Podhorzer is here. He's the assistant to the president for strategic research for the AFL-CIO. He's been working in politics for more than 25 years, serving as chief architect of labor's political strategy, a prominent leader in using data to drive political work, and a key figure in the fight to protect the 2022 election results. We're excited to share with you both his insights on the midterms and his clear-eyed vision of the stakes for our democracy. Thanks for joining us, Mike, and I'm going to hand it to you.
Thank you. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and just voice my appreciation for all that Vote Save America does, and that all the people who participate with you do. I mean, that's how we get through this. There's a way in which, and what you were saying to start out is exactly right. The stakes could not be higher. It is the gun violence that you talked about. It's the delay in dealing with climate change and climate catastrophe. It's everything. But I think one of the things that we keep getting told is how impossible it is for an incumbent party to win the midterms. And I think that is discouraging people where they should not be discouraged, right? It isn't even 2 years ago that we had a president of the United States who had the full power of the federal government. And we and 81 million other people went out to make sure that we didn't have 4 more years of Donald Trump. We have to understand that when America understands that the election is about whether we go back to a country that is governed by Trump and all his MAGA allies, we have the majority, right? Don't let the media and others tell you otherwise, right? If this were an ordinary kind of election 10, 15 years ago, this would be a big problem. But 81 million people in America do not want Donald Trump to come back. And our job is to make sure that they understand that that's what's on the ballot again. And if we can do that, we can get there again. And fortunately, so to speak, they're making that easier. If you're following the primaries tonight, right? Every single candidate who's running for office now on the Republican side is committed to undermining free and fair elections. Even in Georgia, where some in the media are saying that Trump could get a big loss because the voters are going to elect Brian Kemp, that's just missing the story. Kemp is just as committed as anyone else to making sure that Trump comes back, right? So our job is to make sure that people understand that if they thought it was important to vote in 2018 and 2020, the job is not done. We have to come back and do it again. The states, if you are in a state like Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, the stakes for the whole country couldn't be higher. Because if we lose the governor's races in even one of those states, their ability to make sure that Trump or whoever it is wins the 24 election in the Electoral College soars, right? So we just have to get out there and do that. The thing that pundits really haven't absorbed yet is that starting with Trump, Americans are more onto what's really at stake in these elections. And when they are, we win. So that's really what we all have to do in talking to our neighbors, talking to our friends, going out and volunteering, contributing to campaigns. But we should just not forget that we won the 2018 midterms and the 2020 general by huge margins. We just have to do that again. And I think we are up for that. Otherwise, we're in a situation where if they get control, we don't have free and fair elections again. The country goes in a direction that is going to be very hard to come back from, right? One of the things that I really hope that everyone who's tuning in does is in just a couple of weeks, the House Select Committee is going to begin its hearings on January 6th. And what we've already seen is the evidence that Trump led a criminal conspiracy to overturn the election. And that when we talk to each other, when we talk to people in our communities, it's not just about what happened on the Capitol grounds on January 6th. It's that from even before the election, they were trying to make sure the election didn't happen successfully. And when it did, to overturn the results. That's a criminal conspiracy. A federal judge has already said that that's likely, right? When we go to the election, we have to make sure that the ways in which Republican candidates up and down the ballot are plus oneing what happened is front and center. And that's connected to what we just heard about overturning Roe and all of the other things that they're going to do now, right? We have to bring that home to people that this is not an election about whether you are, whether you're concerned about rising prices or other issues, right? It's an existential question of whether or not we continue to have elections that matter in the United States. So I think that's really the kind of frame that we have to have. And as I just said, I think as we go into January 6th hearings, make sure you watch, make sure that people in your networks are watching, make sure that you're getting around all of the information that's going to be revealed then so that people understand and are reminded of exactly who they are and what they're going to do if they come back into power. So I think that's basically where we are. And Shaniqua, I think that pretty much wraps up what I have.
Thank you. Sorry, having a bit of a coughing spell over here.
Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. Thank you. I think a lot of people have been, myself included, consuming a lot of messages telling us there's nothing we can do and history is just what it is. So it's helpful to hear that we don't have to just kind of succumb to that, but also a reminder of what's at stake in this election. I know a lot of people got involved in politics after Donald Trump won in 2016, and crooked media probably would not exist if
right.
if not for that. But I'm just reminded of a story, and it was 2016. It was before the election. I was talking to someone that I greatly admired, and was just like, the election's so crazy. Like, I don't understand why it's so bad right now. And she looked at me and said, "Oh, Barack Obama was the first person you got to vote for." But that is, the departure from the norm. This is, elections are always like this, but I'm hoping that this can be the one time that we can kind of push back on that. And for all of you who are joining us today, like, you're the difference in that. The more people that we're able to connect with and explain what's at stake, and also just relay to people how much power they actually have in this whole process, that can make the difference. And I think when people hear that, they know. You look at Georgia, where there's been a ton of voter suppression laws put into place, but people are, they know that, and they're saying, no, I'm going to exercise my right to vote in the face of all of this. So I think, I just want you all to know that we really value your participation in our programs, and it really does and has and will continue to make the difference. And so we are, as we do every week, asking you all to sign up for a Midterm Madness program, which you can find at votesaveamerica.com/Midterm Madness. And so I just want to thank Mike again for joining us. Oh, I'm so sorry. And now we're actually going to bring back a familiar face from last cycle. Sorry, getting my notes together here. A familiar face from last cycle, who many of you may remember, especially those of you who signed up for Team Wisconsin in 2020. We have I don't know if I can say former, because Team Wisconsin never die. So we'll just say Team Wisconsin captain. And now you can hear her twice a week as a co-host for What a Day, Crooked's daily podcast. Priyanka, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me back. I'm so excited to be here.
No, absolutely. We are always happy to have you here. If I'm not mistaken, I think your team had the most signups in 2020.
I mean, we Team Wisconsin was pretty legit. We had all the heavy hitters on our team. I mean, I know North Carolina is pretty good too, but
well, I'm not.
It's fine. Some of us ended up being more successful than others. It's okay. We all participated, and that is great.
Exactly. And overall, Joe Biden won, and
right.
That is what matters. And I think everyone probably filtered into Georgia after November. So we can all take credit for flipping the Senate as well.
Totally.
So yes, we have you here to kind of ask any questions that you have about what we're doing this year. So I will turn it over to you.
Yeah. Okay. I am very excited about this because I have not been working as closely on the day-to-day with Team VSA as I was in 2020, which is sad for me, but provides the perfect opportunity for me and everybody else to get read into what is going on. So let's talk about the program. Obviously, a little bit different than Adopt a State. How is this going to work? Break it down for me. What are the basics? What do we need to know?
Yes. So Adopt a State was focused on 6 states. Our thinking in 2020 was that we need to flip the White House and we need to flip the Senate. And to do that, we were going to have to focus on very specific states and statewide elections ultimately, which presidential for Joe Biden, but then Senate races in 3 of the 6 states that we focused on. This year, we're focused on everything. And that literally means we're focused on almost every state in the country, which probably sounds crazy, but when you think about it, we still have those battleground states that will be really important for the Senate. So thinking about a state like Georgia, where Raphael Warnock is up for re-election because in 2020, that was a special election. Right. So now he has to actually be elected to a full term, which is the same case for Senator Mark Kelly in Arizona. But then you have states like California, where even though Gavin Newsom did get recalled last year and we had to have an election. Typically, you don't have to worry about statewide elections in a place like California, but there are a handful of House races that will really make a difference in Democrats being able to keep the House, but also hopefully expand their margins so that we're not seeing, all that we saw last year with votes being so close. And I'm not going to editorialize that anymore, but it would be great to have larger margins in the House. And so in that regard, we're looking all over the country, but we're also going further down the ballot. With everything that we've seen at the federal level, we want to expand our margins, and that is the goal. But even right now, Democrats have control of the White House and both chambers of Congress. But a lot of things are not happening. And so we also want to make sure that we have protections at the state level. And so people like Governor Gretchen Whitmer, making sure that governors are reelected in places like Michigan and Wisconsin, even Kansas has a Democratic governor, but also thinking about attorney generals and secretaries of state.
Yeah.
Attorney generals can decide whether or not to enforce through the courts a law or prosecute people who, break a law. I don't want to put law in quotations, but laws that don't make any sense. Like, for instance, banning access to abortion. Attorney generals can choose whether or not to prosecute those laws. And then secretaries of state, we saw what happened in 2020 when a lot of people thought they could just kind of take it into their own hands as to whether or not they were going to certify Joe Biden's victory. And so making sure that we integrate those kinds of races in, but even looking further down the ballot, school board races are another place that we just see extremism creeping up. And, that's where these book bans are coming from, and just a lot of the craziness that we're seeing. So we are providing people access to get involved at every level, but also ballot measures. There are places in states where it's really hard to elect Democrats, but there are progressive policies on the ballot that voters can vote for directly. So pretty much there's no boundaries on what we care about, and we're trying to get people involved in everything. Last thing I will add is the CTAs will work the same way, the calls to action. We will send an email out every week. Once you have signed up for a region, you will get an email every week with a call to action that will help one of the many things I just listed happening in your region. So that part is the same.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about, BSA and, the previous program, this current one, is sort of that we have a lot of big goals, and everything that you just laid out, that's a lot, right? But you guys break it down so well week after week into here's one tangible thing you can do today. Here's one tangible thing you can do next week, and the week after that, and the week after that. And it's really kind of not overwhelming in a way that, things could otherwise be. It's not, you sitting and feeling hopeless, being like, I wonder how this is going to go. I'm just going to watch the news or see the polling, and that's your only the only control you have over anything. I don't know. I just appreciate the ability to be proactive in the way that you guys make that so easy. So thank you on my part. And I have a question that pertains to me, but perhaps applicable a little more widely. So I have allegiance to many places. I live in LA. I'm from Chicago. Mm-hmm. I spend a lot of time in New York as well. How does one narrow down, which region they are going to pick? Is there one that's higher priority? How does one pick in this situation?
Well, I'm always going to be biased. And since you mentioned no affiliation to the South, I think you should pick the South. Then
I went to school in the South, actually. So, I mean.
Oh, well, there you go. Well,
I have a connection everywhere.
Well, now I can't use my reasoning that the South would be, kind of an impartial decision, but I still think the South is where you should plug in. But if you have to make a more informed decision, in 2020, people were not really knocking on doors, but this year it's going to be really important. So I would really suggest everyone who's trying to make a decision about where to get involved, wherever you're going to physically be the most, if there is a place that you can, basically go out and talk to people in person, that is one of the most effective ways to talk to voters, to, answer any questions they have and make sure they have all they need to vote. So I think that should be the number one thing that you're looking at, because all of the regions have competitive Senate races, competitive House races, Secretary of State, all of those positions that I mentioned before, and in all of these states, we have prosecutor elections, in some cities, sheriff elections. So there's something everywhere. There's something very important everywhere. So, where you can have the greatest impact is where you can have the most direct contact with voters. So I will say that that's what you should do. And I'll just add to that, if you also want to kind of take it a step further, or maybe you're not sure, maybe you literally will be in a lot of places. One consistent thing you can do is sign up to have a recurring donation to one of our funds. And so that is a way that you can always be, having an impact regardless of where you are. And then you can participate in those remote and sometimes in-person CTAs when it makes sense for your schedule.
Love that. Set it and forget it. That is very easy to do. I also just to call back to canvassing. I forgot about that because we just haven't done it in so long. The first time I ever canvassed was with VSA in 2018. I had never done anything like that before. I was definitely a little nervous, but it was me and a friend of mine. We went down to Orange County to canvass for Katie Porter, actually. So now I get to feel immense pride every time she does something amazing, which
Thank you for your contribution.
Very frequent. Well, I mean, it was just the most fun ever. This is really a plug for everybody on it. It was on this call. It's just like a really fun way to spend a day. It's really meaningful. You have these connections with people, and sure, like some people are like, okay, I don't have time to talk right now, but you run into some people and you do have really good conversations, and they learn things about the candidate, and they're like, hey, actually, you know what? When is that election? When do I have to go vote? I'm going to go do that. And it makes you feel really good. So that's just my personal plug. It's a great way to feel like you're doing something.
Yeah. And it really makes a difference. And, when I first canvassed, I was scared out of my mind. I was just like, why am I knocking on strangers' doors?
I know.
And this is in North Carolina. So it's not, people are not just walking around most parts of North Carolina. So you have to literally drive, you pull into someone's driveway. And I know whenever someone pulled into my driveway that I didn't know, I was like, what is going on?
Who are you?
Yeah. But then, you start talking to people, and when you are asking people like what they care about, they actually do want to have a conversation about that. And so it's a really good experience. So we'll encourage anyone to do that safely, following any COVID precautions that are put in place by the folks you're volunteering with. But thank you so much, Priyanka, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is great. I got my questions answered. Now I'm going to have a region. So.
Well, as soon as you decide, maybe we can do a big reveal, like LeBron James, the big decision.
Oh my God.
Find out what
a lot of pressure.
But yeah, no, thank you. And for those of you who still have not signed up yet, really encourage you to sign up as soon as we get back from the Memorial Day weekend. We're going to start providing those weekly CTAs for you all to participate in your regions. So if you go to votesaveamerica.com/midterms, you can sign up for your region, and everything I just said to Priyanka, think through where you're going to be, or, where you're willing to travel to. But we really want you to join a team that allows you to have an impact on all the races that are happening, but also, the model we set up for this year really allows people to get involved locally as well. The Senate is really important. The House is really important, but so are those local races that are happening in your community. So we want you to be able to tap into all of that. And another CTA we have for you, if you've already signed up, is to ask 3 friends to join you in signing up for your region. It's going to take a lot of work for us to do well this cycle. It's not impossible, but it's going to take a lot of work. And so we need as many people on board as possible to make this happen. And finally, once you sign up for the program, or if you already have, we will include in this week's email some actions you can take to help out in Texas. So we are doing a little bit of research to compile that information for you, but hope to have some actions you can take to support the people affected, but also some actions you can take to start getting people registered and engaged so that we can get some better folks in office who actually care about the gun violence that is happening in this country. So thank you again to all of you for joining us today. Please sign up for the program, and we really look forward to working with you all this year. Thank you.